Yuru is a young, gifted boy with a strong sister complex who has spent his entire life in this secluded village. He was born at the break of dawn with his twin sister, Asa, and a prophecy foretells that he will one day command powerful demons, though Yuru himself has no idea about this prophecy. One day, after going out hunting, he returns to the village, and his friend Danji is there waiting for him at the entrance. He is relieved to see that Yuru made it back all right, but he's also annoyed that he went without inviting him along. Still, he can't exactly complain when Yuru managed to catch a pheasant all by himself. As they walk back into the village together, all the villagers greet Yuru, and he even offers to come help them with their work later today. But first, he needs to head home. Back home, Granny Yamaha and Danji's mother are busy chopping logs together, and when they see that Yuru managed to catch a pheasant, they are really impressed. Yuru asks Granny Yamaha how his sister Asa has been doing lately, and she tells him that Asa has been hard at work as usual. Yuru heads down into the cellar to see his sister, and behind a wooden cage, Asa is sitting in silence. It may look a bit unusual, but she's apparently perfectly fine with this arrangement, and as a matter of fact, she has a great relationship with Yuru. Yuru sits down next to the cage and starts telling Asa all about his hunting trip, and she's impressed by what he accomplished. However, Yuru isn't really happy about it because he was actually hoping to catch a boar or something. After all, this year's harvest has been pretty weak, so they might not have enough food to last the winter if he doesn't do something soon. Hearing that, Asa looks a little upset and asks if Yuru is planning to go down the mountain to find work, but he says he would never do that. He has been working on his hunting skills precisely so he doesn't have to go down the mountain. After all, he would never want to leave Asa's side, and she is happy to hear that. Just then, Danji's mom comes over to call Yuru out because Dara is here, and he probably doesn't want to miss him. Dara is the only person who routinely travels out of the village and back, and he always brings high-quality goods with him, like painkillers, genetically modified seeds, and all sorts of other things. When Yuru arrives, Dara asks him if there's anything he wants, but Yuru says he just wants something to give Asa, and Dara has just the thing. He tosses a ball over to Yuru, and he is grateful because this would be perfect for her. After Dara is done trading with the villagers, he leaves to head back down the mountain. Meanwhile, Danji and Yuru are busy hanging straw out to dry. Danji mentions that he really wishes he could go outside the village like Dara does. Yuru doesn't understand what the big deal is about the outside world, but Danji points out that everyone aside from Dara who has left the village has never chosen to come back, so it must be good out there. Even so, Yuru says he would be perfectly happy living the rest of his life in this village, and Danji can understand why, especially since he has Asa here. On that note, Danji tells Yuru that if he really cares about being with Asa so much, then he could just take her and leave the village together. But Yuru says that would never work because she has an important job to perform here. Just then, Yuru hears a loud rumbling sound. As he looks into the sky, he can see smoke trails in the air. Behind the scenes, a hand reaches out and crushes the barrier around the village, revealing it to the outside world. As the barrier comes down, Yuru and Danji can now see that the smoke was being created by a plane flying overhead, and the rumbling sound was from 2 helicopters. No one in the village has ever seen anything like it before. The entire village falls into chaos as the helicopters soar overhead. But this isn't a simple case of a secret village being discovered. This is a targeted military operation. The soldiers have been authorized to use deadly force, so the moment they encounter a few villagers, they immediately execute them. As more soldiers make their way into the village on foot, they begin opening fire, and gunshots echo all throughout the area. A few villagers run up to Granny Yamaha to ask if she knows what's going on. She tells them that it looks like the village's barrier was taken down somehow. She's not sure how it happened, but one thing is certain. The people invading the village are after Yuru, so they need to hide him before he gets caught. Yuru and Danji soon find the corpses of villagers who were taken out moments ago, and they are both horrified by the gruesome sight. But they can't stop now because they still need to check on their families. As they run up the staircase, they spot 2 soldiers standing there. Yuru doesn't hesitate at all before drawing his bow and striking them with arrows to the torso. Then, to finish them off, both he and Danji kick them in the head. They continue heading towards the peak, but Danji is a little worried about the fact that those dragons are still circling around the outer area. Yuru is starting to think that they might not be dragons after all, but either way, he doesn't think he'll be able to take them down with his bow, so it would be best to avoid them altogether. They soon make it to the left and right god statues, but Danji says they've still got a long way to go because he wants to check on his mom, and he's sure that Yuru must want to check on Asa. Danji is right about that, but Yuru actually has a plan to make it down to the cellar quicker. He runs over to the base of one of the statues and asks Danji to come help him move some of the stones. Danji doesn't understand what he's doing, but Yuru tells him to just trust the process and help. A few minutes later, once the stones have been removed, Yuru takes out a panel at the base of the statue, revealing a secret passage that leads straight down to the cellar. Danji had no idea that something like this even existed, but it's a good thing it does, because now Yuru can make it to Asa much faster. Meanwhile, back on the surface, a girl named Gabby has just been dropped off by a helicopter, right in front of a group of machete-wielding villagers. She seems to be unarmed, so the villagers aren't sure if she's a threat or not, but then she pinches her fingers, and all of a sudden, part of a villager's body gets bitten off. Kind of like Aki's fox bite. She then proceeds to take out all the villagers one after another, leaving no survivors. A mother tries to take her kid and run before it's too late, but Gabby is too quick for that, so she takes the mother's head off as well. The child is filled with absolute terror at the sight of her mother in pieces, but just when she thought the same thing was about to happen to her, Gabby tells her she doesn't need to worry because she has a rule against biting kids. However, that doesn't mean she's against mentally scaring them. Now that the villagers here have been taken care of, Gabby makes a call to let the group's troops know that it's all clear for them to come up. But to her surprise, there's no response from them. And that's because the soldiers happened to run into Dara on the way down, and he didn't waste any time taking them all down. He isn't sure what could have gone wrong for the barrier to be taken down, but it's definitely going to cause problems. So he takes out his phone and makes a call to someone named Hana to tell her that he'd like to change the rendezvous point because the real Asa is definitely in danger. Meanwhile, down in the hold, Granny is being dragged along by Asa, and when she eventually comes face to face with the imitation of her, she is absolutely disgusted by the sight. So she raises her hand, and in the next moment, the Asa in the cage has her head blown open. Just after this happens, Yuru runs into the hold, and he calls out Asa's name in horror after seeing what happened, but to his surprise, the woman in front of him raises her hand and says she's his real sister, which is why she's here to take him back, but first she's going to kill everyone else in this godforsaken village. Yuru has no idea what this woman is talking about, but he refuses to believe that she's his sister, especially not after she just killed the person he's known as his sister for years, so he draws his bow and prepares to fire. Asa uses her powers to block the shot, causing one of the hold's walls to be blown out. Meanwhile, on the ground, Dara is currently taking out as many foot soldiers as possible and making his way towards the hold, but he has to play it safe on the way there because he can't risk letting the helicopter follow him back. Unfortunately, he ends up coming face to face with Gabby, and he can immediately tell how much of a threat she is because he can see her demon teeth as clear as day. Gabby is surprised that Dara can actually see them, and that makes this a lot more interesting. She sends her teeth at Dara, but he dodges out of the way and fires a few shots at her. However, she is able to block the bullets with the teeth, so Dara needs to get creative and tosses a grenade above her, and Gabby looks genuinely scared for a second. As the explosion goes off, we cut back to Yuru and Asa in the hold, and Asa realizes she went overboard even though she had only intended to block his arrow, so she apologizes because she's still not used to controlling her powers yet. As Yuru tries to pull himself out of the rubble, that ball he had been carrying rolls out of his shirt and bounces all the way over to the fake Asa's corpse, and the second it comes into contact with the blood, a black creature emerges and grabs the real Asa's arm. Yamaha then yells for Dara to get Yuru out of here as soon as possible, and a moment later, Dara shows up, grabs Yuru, and starts running. Meanwhile, Danji is checking up on his mother when he sees Dara dragging Yuru away, and he can't believe this is happening. After Dara brings Yuru out of the secret passage, he tells him they need to get down the mountain at once because it's not safe here anymore. But Yuru doesn't feel like listening because nothing makes sense to him anymore. Dara promises to explain everything to him once they make it to safety, but escape isn't really an option right now because they've got 2 helicopters circling them with snipers on board. This is really bad because they can't move from this spot now, and if Gabby manages to find them, then there's no way they're going to escape. However, Yuru is too preoccupied thinking about the fact that Asa might be dead. He did see her move a little before Dara dragged him away, but now he's not even sure if that was the real Asa or not. He also feels terrible about leaving Yamaha behind like that, and he still doesn't know who that woman who claimed to be Asa is. But she said she was going to kill everyone else in the village, and he doesn't understand why this happened. There really isn't time for Dara to explain everything, so he just hands Yuru a jade pendant and tells him to go stick it in the hole in the ground. Yuru outright refuses because there's no way he's going right into the line of sight of that sniper. But Dara knows that the sniper won't shoot Yuru because they are here to capture him alive, so he tells Yuru to just do it already, and he reluctantly agrees. Yuru runs over to the hole, but he finds it plugged up with a bunch of dirt, so he has to start digging it out. He eventually manages to place the pendant in the hole, and he turns to Dara to ask what he should do next. But a second later, Dara slams Yuru's head right into the ground, giving him a bloody nose and causing his blood to splatter onto the pendant. Yuru gets up and yells at him for it. But the final step of the ritual required Yuru's blood to be poured onto the pendant, and now that that step has been completed, everything is finally ready. The snipers prepare themselves to take out Dara once they have a clear shot, but before they can pull the trigger, the pendant activates and the two statues release the power seal within them. As a result, two powerful demons come flying out and begin ripping the helicopters to shreds, sending them crashing into the ground. And on the other side of the village, Gabby is horrified when she sees the choppers come crashing down. Not because she was friends with the pilots, but because they were supposed to be her ride home. So now that they are gone, she's going to have to walk all the way down the mountain. Meanwhile, back on Yuru and Dara's end, they come face to face with the demons who were sealed within the statues, left and right, and they both call Yuru their master. While Yuru is still in shock over the fact that left and right are actually real, Dara walks up to them and introduces himself. Left and right have had their eye on Dara for a while, so they recognize him as a retainer, and since he's here, Right asks him if he can explain what that thing over there is. He and Left took it down because it posed a threat to Yuru, but they've never seen anything like it in all their years as demons. Dara explains that those are vehicles of the modern era, but that isn't important right now because they've got more pressing matters to deal with. Thus, he asks Left and Right to help them make it down from the mountain safely as soon as possible. However, Left and Right cut him off because they don't take orders from anyone aside from their master, and last time they checked, their master was Yuru, not Dara. Dara yells that he understands that, but Yuru doesn't understand any of what's going on. And there's no time to get him up to speed because there are at least 2 dangerous demon users in the village right now, and they need to get out of here before they show up. However, just then, Gabby appears behind them, and she's annoyed because Left and Right look really strong. So dealing with them is going to be a pain for her. She assumes Yuru must be the one that Asa told her about, so she tells him to make this easy for himself and come with her quietly. But being reminded of Asa and everything that had happened in the village, Yuru flares up in a fit of rage. He demands to know if Gabby is the one who was responsible for all those corpses in the middle of the village, and she doesn't deny it at all, so Yuru plans to take her out. Left and Right tell him that all he needs to do is give the order, and they'll support him with their full strength. But Yuru says he has no intention of ordering them around. He's still not sure what this whole demon thing means, but as far as he's concerned, Left and Right are still the guardian deities of this village, so he is going to show them proper respect. As such, he won't order them, but he does have 2 requests he would like them to fulfill. First, he wants them to go look for any survivors and make sure that they are safe, and second, he says he wants to be the one who kills Gabby, but aside from that, they are free to do whatever they please. Left and Right are a little surprised by Yuru's hands-off approach as their master, but they can respect his confidence. Meanwhile, back at the tower, Asa is still being held in place by Granny's daemon, but she eventually manages to break free by tossing it to the side, so she prepares to go out into the village to look for Yuru. Before she leaves, she swears to get revenge for what the old hag put Yuru through. As Asa is running down the mountain, she comes across Danji and his mother, and Danji is worried that Asa might try to kill them, but she actually decides to spare their lives and leaves to continue looking for Yuru. Meanwhile, at the village entrance, since Yuru has given them free rein to do as they please, Right charges forward and leaps into the air to go look for survivors like Yuru asked, and at the same time, Left kicks the crap out of Gabby's daemon, sending it crashing into one of the mountain walls. With her daemon temporarily incapacitated, Gabby is now completely defenseless, so Yuru is able to fire a shot right into her leg. He prepares to fire another shot to finish her off, but Gabby sees it coming and calls her daemon back to fly her away to safety. However, Yuru isn't letting her get away so easily, so he chases after her, and the entire time, Dara is complaining because he just wants to get down the mountain already. In the middle of the village, Right finds the little girl that Gabby spared lying unconscious next to all the corpses, and after inspecting her, he is relieved to find out that she's still alive. However, from the girl's perspective, it looks like she's being poked and prodded by an invisible force since regular humans can't see demons. Right materializes his body in an attempt to set the girl's mind at ease and let her know that he is here to protect her. But seeing a large person appear right before her eyes startles her so much that she passes out again. Right takes the girl, along with a few other kids he managed to find around the village, to a building and lays them down for safety. So far, from what Right can tell, the invaders butchered every adult they found, but it looks like all the children were spared. Just then, Asa comes running by, and thinking she's one of the survivors in the village, Wright calls out to her, but Asa can tell that he's a demon and attempts to use her powers to knock him out. However, Wright is no pushover, so the second he realizes that she's attacking him, he lets out a ferocious roar that cancels out as his blast. He yells at her and says it's rude to attack others out of nowhere like that, and normally, he would be more than happy to give her a fight, but he was ordered to take care of survivors, and he still assumes Asa is an innocent bystander. Asa realizes that fighting Wright would be too difficult right now, so she runs off to continue looking for Yuru, and as she leaves, Wright notices that her scent is awfully similar to Yuru's. Back on Yuru's end, Gabby is desperately trying to stay away from him, but Left manages to pry the mouth of her demon open, and as soon as Yuru has a clear line of sight, he fires another shot into Gabby's shoulder. This very well could have been the end for Gabby, but Asa shows up just in time to save her. She runs over to check on Gabby, but just then, Yuru points his bow at the two of them and threatens to shoot if they make any sudden moves. He demands to know who Asa really is, but she assures him that she wasn't lying when she said she was his little sister. Yuru doesn't think that's possible because she's way too tall to be his little sister, but she says the food down the mountain is a lot more nutritious than the stuff here, so she just grew more. Yuru still doesn't believe that this Asa is really his sister, but just then, Wright comes falling out of the sky and tells him that Asa isn't lying. He can smell her blood, and it's definitely the same as Yuru's, so there's no doubt that the two of them are related. If that's the case, then Yuru asks who the fake Asa that was kept in the hold all these years was, and Asa explains that it was a fake created by the old hag to make sure Yuru never left the village. Basically, one day, Asa and Yuru's parents said they needed to leave the village immediately, but they only managed to take Asa with them, and to prevent Yuru from running away like the others, the fake Asa was made and kept in the hold because they knew there was no way Yuru would ever abandon what he thought was his little sister. This is all a lot for Yuru to take in, and he's not sure what to do now, but Dara doesn't want things to get out of control here. So he tells Yuru to stand down and suggests they should back off while Asa is still preoccupied tending to her injured friend. Yuru tries to argue, but Dara reminds him that there's no guarantee they'll be able to beat Asa if this turns into a full-blown fight, and worse yet, the surviving villagers might get caught in the crossfire. So the best option right now is to retreat. Yuru realizes that Dara is right, so he agrees to stop attacking Gabby and turns to head down the mountain. After they've left, Gabby turns to Asa and asks why she didn't try to capture Yuru even though he was right there. Asa says she needs to take care of Gabby's wounds first, and she's just happy that her brother is still alive after all this time. Before long, Granny starts putting the village's barrier back up, so Gabby tells Asa that they need to get out of here before they are trapped. Meanwhile, further down the mountain, a couple is out on a hike together, and they are wondering what all the noise earlier was about because they remember hearing 2 helicopters fly in. One of them mentions hearing rumors of a lost village on the mountain where there shouldn't be anything, and if you end up wandering into that village, there's a good chance you'll never make it out again. Just then, Dara and Yuru come running down the mountain, and Dara notices that he can't see the village anymore, so the barrier may be back up and running by now. Yuru asks if that means they can never go back now, but Dara says that's not the case. It's difficult to return, but not impossible. However, Dara doesn't think that's such a good idea since the people after Yuru already know where the village is and how to get inside it, so it won't work as a hiding place anymore. As they make it to the base of the mountain, there's a girl named Hana waiting to pick them up, but she's pissed because Dara didn't say anything about him bringing along 2 daemons when he asked for the emergency pickup. Dara says it's a long story, but right now they need to get going. Yuru is still a little confused by all this, so Hana introduces herself and explains that she and Dara work together as daemon retainers. Dara asks left and right if they can smell any other daemons in the area right now, but they say there's nothing nearby, so they should be in the clear. In that case, Dara suggests they should probably get moving before they get some unwanted company, so he tells Yuru to get in. But Yuru says he isn't going anywhere near that thing. He has never seen anything like it before, so there's no way he's going to just walk into it. Dara understands why Yuru would be scared, so he prepares himself to give a full 10-hour YouTube video's worth of explanations about how a car works, but Hana doesn't want to sit there that long. So she just tells him that there are tiny little horses in there that make it go fast, and that's good enough for Yuru, so he agrees to get in. As for Asa and Gabby, Asa is done giving her first aid, so now they are just waiting for their pickup to arrive. Gabby is worried that they might still be trapped inside the barrier, preventing their team from finding them, but Asa says that isn't an issue. She knows they aren't in the barrier's range because she's getting signal, and even if they were, she could always just break it open again. A few moments later, Jean arrives with a full team to take Asa and Gabby down the mountain, so he tells his men to get the stretcher ready and load Gabby in. He asks Gabby how her wounds are doing, so she explains that she's still got an arrow in her shoulder, but the one in her leg has been taken out already, so she just needs a few stitches. Jean is a little concerned by the fact that Yuru isn't with them since getting him was the entire point of the mission, but Gabby says he just got away. Honestly, she's surprised that Jean didn't run into him on the way up here, but Jean assumes that he must have used a shortcut that isn't listed on the map. Finding him would be easy if they still had their helicopters, but they already lost both of those as well as all the soldiers they came with, and they didn't even manage to capture Yuru, so Jean is going to have a hard time explaining this one to the higher-ups. Gabby mentions that Yuru escaped with a guy named Dara, and hearing that makes Jean even more concerned because he realizes that Gabby must be referring to the Tadera, and he knows just how dangerous those retainers are, so he's starting to wish he had brought his daemons with him. Meanwhile, on the ride down, Dara explains everything that happened on the mountain, and he says he is pretty sure the ones behind the attack were the Kegmori. And now that they got his name and face, he's probably going to have to shave and move towns now. Just then, Left and Right sense something approaching, so they knock on the glass to warn Dara that there is a powerful demon approaching. This gets Hana worried since she didn't think they would come after them so quickly, but Left and Right explain that there's nothing to worry about because this daemon is an old friend of theirs. The woman's name is Oshirasuma, and she is excited to see Left and Right again because it has been 400 years since she last saw them. She asks if this means they have finally found themselves a new master, and they both confirm it, bragging that their master happens to be one of the twins that divide day and night. Oshirasuma is happy for them, and she asks what they intend to do now, but they are honestly not sure. Dara says they can hide out in a human city or something, so that's where they are headed, and Oshirasuma says she'd love to hear all about it when they get back. She then flies away, and once she's gone, Dara and Hana start freaking out because they never thought they'd get to meet her, but Yuru doesn't understand what the big deal is. The two yell at him to show some respect because Oshirasuma is a legit god, but hearing that makes Left and Right grumpy because they are gods too, yet they weren't given that kind of reverence. Dara and Hana explain that there are several different categories of demons. Some are pretty much gods, like Ashimaru, who lives alongside humanity. Some get directly involved with humanity and grant blessings, while others lead people to commit crimes. Meanwhile, back on the mountain, two soldiers who manage to survive are trying to make their way down, but they soon realize that no matter how far they walk, they never make it past that rock over there. So they must be trapped inside the barrier, and that means they can never leave. Before they get to town, Dara and Hana stop at a rest stop and tell Yuru that he's going to have to change clothes so he can blend in more easily. They also give him some onigiri to eat, but Yuru has never seen such luxurious and thoroughly processed food before, so he asks them if this was a gift from the gods or something. Yuru absolutely loves the taste, so Dara offers to give him some more, and Hana jokes that he's acting like a grandma right now. But hearing that, Yuru is reminded of what happened at the village, and he wishes Asa were here to try this because she'd probably love it. Just then, Right gets Dara's attention and asks him what this place is because he has never seen anything like it before, but Dara doesn't really know how to explain it. He tells Right that it's a spot where people can rest and restock when they are on long journeys, and both Left and Right seem amazed by the concept. Dara tells them they can come take a look inside if they want, but Right turns him down because it is their duty to stay by Yuru's side. And as such, he tells Dara and Hana that they can head inside and have a meal, and while they are gone, Left and Right will ensure that nothing harms Yuru. Dara and Hana decide to take them up on their offer, so the two head inside, but before they leave, Hana warns them not to touch the wheel of the car. Left and Right agree, but they ask her if she's not going to feed this strange horse, but rather than explain that it's not an actual horse, she just tells them that she fed it earlier. Inside, Dara and Hana have a nice meal together, and Hana asks how much Dara has told Yuru about the situation. Dara says he hasn't actually filled Yuru in on much since he seemed pretty shaken after he found out that the Asa he had been living with all these years wasn't his real sister. He didn't want to give him more than he could handle in one go, but Hana thinks he's being a little too nice. On another note, she asks Dara where he plans to take Yuru after this, and Dara can't take Yuru back to his usual house since his name and face have been compromised, so he's going to ditch that place. Hana tells him he's got it rough since he's technically homeless and has to take care of a kid, but Dara reminds her that it's her job to help him handle the situation. Hana understands that and promises to do everything within her power to help, and Dara is glad to hear that because he tells her she's going to have to marry him. Hana says she's not in the mood for that kind of joke, but Dara isn't joking about this. He says that if they are going to protect Yuru, then they need to blend in as much as possible, and the last thing they'd want is people spreading rumors. Hana asks what getting married has to do with any of that, So Dara asks how exactly he's supposed to explain having Yuru to his new neighbors if he doesn't have a wife. People are either going to think he's divorced or that his wife has died, and that's a breeding ground for gossip. Hana can't really argue with that logic, but she still hates the fact that she's going to have to get married for this. Meanwhile, out in the parking lot, Left and Right are searching all around the car to try and figure out where the horses are being stored, but just then, Yuru realizes that he ate all the food Dara and Hana left and he didn't think to save any for Left and Right. But they tell him there's no need to worry because they don't require food like humans do. Yuru is glad to hear that, but moving on to a more serious topic, he asks them to tell him everything they know about him and his sister. Unfortunately, there's not much they can actually tell him. For the past 400 years, Left and Right have sat unmoving in front of the village, so they don't know much about what goes on outside the village, or what happens inside the village for that matter. That said, they did see the people who came and went in and out of the village, and one day, they heard them talking about how a pair of twins who split night and day had been born. A few years after that, they started seeing Yuru's dad taking Yuru out on hunting trips, but they never saw even a glimpse of Asa during those years. They began to fear that Asa may have died shortly after birth due to an illness of some kind, but then one night 10 years ago, they saw Yuru's parents frantically fleeing the village with a little girl in tow, and that little girl had the same blood as Yuru, so they could tell that she was his sister. Yuru has finally accepted that that girl is really Asa, but he still doesn't understand why she would lay waste to the village, or why his parents ran away with her but left him behind. The only way he's ever going to get the answers he wants is by talking to his parents, and the only way he's going to be able to do that is by finding Asa and asking her to lead him to them. A little while later, Dara and Hana return, and Yuru notices that Hana seems a little upset, so he asks her if something is wrong, but she doesn't want to talk about it. She just tells Yuru that from now on, she and Dara are going to be his guardians, and that means they'll be responsible for him if he gets into any mischief, so he had better do his best to stay out of trouble. And speaking of trouble, she tells him that he's going to draw attention if he keeps sitting up there like that. So Yuru apologizes and gets down, but he asks if they are going to be okay since Left and Right have to sit up there during the car ride. Hana tells him that those two are fine because the majority of humans can't see daemons unless they themselves have a daemon or the daemon allows itself to be seen. A little while later, they all get back in the car to continue their journey, and along the way, Yuru asks Dira about the Kagomori clan he mentioned earlier, wondering if those guys are daemon users as well. Dira confirms that some of them are, and they are a major pain in the butt for him. They used to be allies of the village who lived down the mountain, but due to ideological differences, they split off, and Hana tells Yuru that he's better off not getting involved with people like that if he can avoid it. As for how they are going to avoid being tracked down by the Kagomori, Dara says he has a list of people they can trust. Meanwhile, in a building downtown, a woman is currently being chased down the hallway by a killer, and for someone who is running for her life, she's doing a terrible job because she gets to the end of the hallway, and instead of turning, she waits there for a solid 10 seconds to give the killer time to catch up. She then runs over to the elevator and gets in, but before the door could close, the killer catches up to her and gets in as well. He then starts inching closer with the knife, but just when he is about to stab the woman, her body begins to bend and twist, revealing that she was just a trap made using an anglerfish. And now that there's nowhere for the killer to go, the anglerfish begins devouring him. Meanwhile, Jean, the owner of that daemon, calls the woman who told him about the murder and assures her that she doesn't have to worry because he won't be causing any more trouble. At the same time, the murderer is getting pulled down by the anguished souls of all those he had killed in the past, and a little while later, when the elevator door opens, there's nothing left of him. A nearby woman is mortified when she sees the daemon leave the elevator, and as soon as Jean realizes that she's capable of seeing daemons, he tells her she had better keep this a secret. Back with Yuru, after the group reaches another rest stop, Yuru asks them to tell him everything they know, but they say they don't know much either. They aren't filled in on all the details by their higher-ups, and the job is basically just something their families have done for generations. Basically, Dara received 2 orders, to keep outsiders away from the village and to make sure the twins don't fall into enemy hands. Otherwise, all he does is relay info to the village and deliver supplies every now and then, and it's not really his place to question what the higher-ups ask him to do. So there are likely a lot of things that are kept secret from even him. Also, while on the topic of secrets, Dara informs Yuru that his real name is Ryu Tadera, but Yuru can still call him Dara if he wants to. Yuru recalls that, in the keep, Granny Yamaha seemed terrified by the idea that he would be taken, so much so that she just told Dara to get him out of there instead of helping her fight, so Yuru wants to know what makes him so special. Dara explains that there is a prophecy, and it says that when a twin boy and girl are born on either side of a sunrise during the equinox, the world will fall into chaos. The last time twins like that were born was 400 years ago, and in that era, war had split the nation into North and South, and further conflict had split both sides into East and West. And on both occasions, Daemon users were manipulating things behind the scenes. Yuru asks if this means he and Asa are cursed to destroy the world, but Wright says that's not necessarily the case. It's just that there are those who would wish to abuse their powers to that end. Yuru asks Wright what he means by powers, since he has never had any kind of special ability, but Left tells him it's only a matter of time before he awakens it. As a matter of fact, judging by how Asa was moving back in the village, she has likely already awakened her power, and since Wright saw it firsthand, he is certain that it was the power of Break. Break is the ability to forcibly unravel all things, and even the strongest barriers are no match for it. But there's another half to the ability. Seal, the power to forcibly close anything, and they are generally considered to be equal in strength. Yuru had never heard about any of this before, but it does explain how Asa was able to get into the village's barrier. But speaking of that barrier, Yuru never even knew there was a barrier in the first place, so he asks how Dara was managing to get in and out all the time. It's a bit complicated, but there's a specific route you've got to take to get through the barrier, and it involves a lot of twists and turns. So it's a real pain in the neck for Dara to remember it all the time, but it needs to be complicated so regular people don't end up wandering in. That said, it's not unheard of for people to accidentally follow the right path to get in, and as it turns out, Yuru's mother was a woman who happened to perfectly meet those conditions. Yuru recalls hearing his mom mention at one point that she came from somewhere far away from the village, and that she hoped she'd be able to return someday with her entire family. But this just adds even more questions to Yuru's list of things he's not sure about. The next morning, Hana leaves to go apartment hunting. And in the meantime, Yuru, Left, and Wright take a stroll through the park, and Wright and Left are fascinated by the sheer number of castles there. Yuru mentions that Dara actually told him about those things, and they aren't actually castles, they are called apartment complexes, and they are places where tons of people live, like compact vertical villages. Wright and Left say it should be pretty easy to hide Yuru from the people who are after him when the crowds are this big, but it's also going to make Yuru's hunt for Asa a lot more difficult. Dara and Hana are nice, so they probably don't have any bad intentions for him. But the fact that they have connections to the village that deceived him makes it difficult for Yuru to trust them, so he isn't going to tell them that he's looking for Asa. That said, he also doesn't fully trust Asa yet, even if she is his real sister. But before he makes any final judgments on who he can and can't trust, he needs to find out the truth. So he asks Left and Right to support him, which they are more than happy to do. Once the group arrives at the house that Hana and Dara set up, they are amazed because they have never seen anything like this before. Yuru is especially amazed by the fact that there's a tatami mat here, because back in the village, tatami was exclusively reserved for special occasions. And even then, it was never as good as this. He loves how good this feels, so he lies down to enjoy it, but just then, he finds a dog and a cat standing over him, and it startles him so much he freaks out. Hana apologizes for not warning him sooner, but she explains that these little guys are Kotetsu and Juro. Just then, Left and Right come in and apologize for not making proper introductions sooner, but they inform Kotetsu and Juro that they are the demons contracted to Yuru, and formally greet them both as fellow demons. Yuru doesn't understand what's going on because there's no way that cat and dog are really demons, but Kotetsu and Juro don't take kindly to being called animals, so they scratch and kick Yuru for being disrespectful. Right then explains to Yuru that these two aren't your average cat and dog, and that what he just said was very rude, so Yuru apologizes for his mistake. Moving on, since Dara and Hana are technically married now, they have decided to take Hana's last name as the name of the family, especially since Dara's name and face were already compromised. So Hana tells Yuru that if anyone asks, then his last name is now Dana. Yuru is surprised to learn that Dara and Hana both have last names, and he is worried that he has been disrespectful to them all this time because he now assumes they are lords, but Hana tells him that everyone around here has a last name, so she's not a lord. However, Dara then tells Yuru that Hana technically is a lord because she owns a mountain, and he's not wrong, but Hana says it's just something she inherited from her family, so it isn't maintained, and she can't exactly sell it to cash out either. In that case, Yuru asks her if she'd be okay with him hunting there in his free time, but Dara tells him that he's going to need to get a license to hunt, which makes no sense to Yuru, but those are the rules down here. Meanwhile, over in the Kagomori HQ, Asa is busy practicing with her powers, and she's trying to improve her accuracy by limiting her blast to the apple, and while she did manage to hit it at low output, when she tried using a little more force, she missed the target completely and blew a hole in the garden. Just then, her master returns home, and he's glad to see that Asa is hard at work training her powers, but she apologizes to him for destroying his garden in the process. He tells her there's no need to feel bad about it since it's just a yard, but it will need to be cleaned up. So he asks Jean to take care of that for him, and Jean passes the task off to his daemon, who eats the destroyed items. Anyway, Asa asks if there's a reason the master came to visit today. So he explains that he's here because he wanted to check on Gabi after he heard that she was injured in the line of duty. Gabi is surprised that the master came all this way just to check up on her, and she tells him he didn't have to do that, but she does appreciate the gesture. Asa asks Gabi if she would like an apple, and Gabi says yes, but then Asa realizes that she doesn't have a knife to cut it the way Gabi likes. Fortunately, Jean has her covered and has Makoto pull out a knife he keeps stored in there, but Gabi is a little hesitant to accept food cut with a knife that Jean probably used to stab someone. A little while later, some tea and snacks have been prepared for everyone, and the master tells Gabi that he wants her to focus on staying put and resting up so she can recover from her injuries. He also tells Asa that he wants her to stay here with Gabi. Now that Yuru is down from the mountain as well, it's safe to say that word is going to spread fast that both twins are in the city, and once that happens, it's likely that people might start coming after Asa as well. Thus, it's safer for her to stay here for now. As for the situation with Yuru, the master has instructed Jean to work on finding him as soon as possible, but that's not going to be an easy task for him, especially since he doesn't even know what Yuru looks like. Gabi realizes that she probably should have taken a picture of him when she had the chance, but there's no changing what happened now, so they go with the next best option and start drawing portraits of him. Unfortunately, Asa and Gabi aren't very good at drawing, but Gabriel over here is great at drawing, so he makes a pretty good picture. Jean says he will begin his search as soon as possible, but before he leaves, Asa catches up to him and warns Jean that Yuru's daemons have a good sense of smell, and they were able to identify her from the smell of her blood, so he should be careful of that. Later that night, back at home, Dara has just finished shaving his beard as a measure to avoid being recognized, but Hana really doesn't like the new look. Dara is about to head out, but he hasn't seen Yuru in a while now, so he asks Hana if she knows where he ran off to. Hana remembers Yuru mentioning that he wanted to go out on a walk to get the lay of the land, and that's fine and all. But Dara happens to notice that his knife is missing, and if Yuru took it, then if he gets found by the police, he will look really suspicious. Meanwhile, Yuru, Left, and Right are all standing on a nearby building, and he is still amazed by just how big the city really is. Left and Right ask him if he's worried that it will be difficult to find Asa in a place with so many people, but Yuru already has a plan for that. He remembers Left and Right saying they could track things by smell alone, so he tells them that all they need to do is to look for the smell of daemons and the smell of Asa's blood, and eventually, they'll find her. That's good enough for Left and Right to start their search, so they transform and drag Yuru into the skies so they can start looking. After flying around for a while, they eventually come across the familiar scent of Asa's blood, as well as that of demons, so they quickly land, and after Yuru has recovered from his flight sickness, Left asks him if they have his permission to cut down the demons as soon as they show themselves. Yuru asks if she's sure that's a good idea because he thinks they should at least talk to the daemons first to see if they are friendly, but Left tells him he can't expect all daemons to be reasonable. It is true that there are some who are capable of reasoning like Left and Right, but the vast majority of daemons are rather impulsive and will attack if given the opportunity, so he should keep that in mind for future reference. The scent of Asa's blood leads them into a parking garage, where Jean and his subordinates are standing, and Right reminds Yuru that they've got to stay on their guard, because if they were able to notice Jean and his crew, then there's no doubt that Jean must have noticed them as well. As far as Yuru can tell, Jean's crew seems to be human, but what really catches his attention is the fact that Asa is standing right next to him, and with his goal so close at hand. Yuru immediately charges forward in an attempt to get to her, but just then, Right notices that something is off about the smell of Asa's blood, so they try to stop him. But it's already too late because Yuru has fallen into the trap. Jean had been carrying around a vial of Asa's blood, which is what Left and Right likely smelled, in an attempt to trick them, but he didn't expect to capture Yuru so quickly. Meanwhile, back at home, Hana is still freaking out over the fact that Yuru might get in trouble out there. They have no idea that he was just captured by Jean, but the fact that he isn't a registered citizen here means he doesn't have any health insurance, and that means that if he gets hurt, then they are going to have to pay for his medical bills. They really can't afford to pay for that, so Hana gives her demons one of Yuru's jackets to smell, and asks them to track him down for her. While Juro is out following Yuru's scent, Kotetsu begins relaying the info to Hana using her phone's map, and Dara is honestly surprised because he has never seen a daemon use modern technology before. The daemons eventually track Yuru's location, but Hana can't believe he really managed to make it all the way to Tokyo in one night, and Dara is starting to wonder why Yuru would go there in the first place. Meanwhile, in the parking garage, Jin's men know that Yuru's daemons must be nearby, so they yell for them to show themselves already. Left and right don't really have much of a choice, so they come out. The man then starts trying to make demands that they surrender, but left and right just ignore him and keep walking forward. The guy tries to get them to stop by reminding them that they've still got Yuru as a hostage, but left and right are just thinking about which one of the men to take hostage in return. They can tell that Jin is the leader here, so they decide to go after him, and left tells Yuru to stay put in that scavenger daemon because it looks like it's pretty powerful, but it can't attack while it's busy holding Yuru hostage. That makes sense to Yuru, so he agrees to stay put. And Jin and the others are surprised because they've never seen demons giving orders to their masters before, and much less a daemon who's willing to leave their master in a dangerous situation. However, Yuru is really hands-off, so they are allowed to do whatever they want. Jin realizes that threatening left and right isn't going to do much, so he takes out an armory of guns, and he and his men start firing at left and right, but those bullets do absolutely nothing against them. Since physical attacks do nothing to them, one of the men summons his daemon and drops a turtle right on top of left. At the same time, the other one summons the honored bunny, who then proceeds to kick the shit out of right. Right is technically stronger, but the bunny is simply too fast for him to fight, so he asks left for help. But left is unable to move because the turtle has some kind of gravity ability that makes it really difficult for her to move. The situation is looking really bad for them, and Yuru can't just sit by and watch as left and right struggle, but he can't exactly break himself out of here on his own. That said, he does have a plan in mind, so he throws his knife at the turtle to get it off, left, and once left is free, she proceeds to smash the scavenger's teeth to break Yuru free. Yuru then tells right to target the lights, and after he has destroyed them, the entire parking garage is plunged into darkness. The bunny tells Jin that he can sense Yuru's daemons running away, and Jin assumes that Yuru must be retreating, but that's not the case at all, because a moment later, Yuru appears behind Jin and slices his ankles. By the time the lights come back on, he is already holding Jin hostage, and left and right soon return to see how things are going. They had run away under Yuru's orders to lure Jin into a false sense of safety for Yuru to attack, and none of them suspected a thing because normally, demons never leave the sides of their masters. Of course, if Yuru had failed to capture Jin, left and right would have returned immediately to help him. Jin admits he should have seen this coming because he was told that Yuru was naturally gifted at hunting, and considering the fact that he grew up in a mountain village, of course, he'd be more adapted to fighting in darkness. Speaking of the village, Yuru demands to know who was responsible for the attack on his home, and Jin doesn't sugarcoat it. He explains that he was the one who orchestrated the attack, so the responsibility rests solely on his shoulders. Hearing that, Yuru is filled with rage, and he wants nothing more than to slit Jin's throat, but he holds himself back because he still needs him alive. He tells Jin to get his phone out and call Asa over here because he wants to talk to her. The guys are surprised to hear that Yuru just wants to talk because they were sure that he would say they should hand Asa over. Jin asks him if he's sure he doesn't want to reclaim Asa for Higashi village, but Yuru tells him that isn't what he's worried about. All he wants to do is ask Asa a few questions, so Jin suggests that Yuru should come back to the Kagamori HQ if he wants to see her. Yuru immediately refuses because there's no way he's walking straight into enemy territory, which is why he wants Asa to come here instead. Jin's subordinates ask Yuru to wait a little because they'd like to take care of Jin's injury first, since he might bleed out at this rate. Yuru says he made sure not to hit any lethal arteries, but he agrees to let them treat Jin's wound because he has no intention of killing Jin, since Jin wasn't trying to kill him either. After all, if Jin had wanted to, it would have been easy for him to take Yuru out with his first attack. Right now knows that the two fish belong to Jin, and the turtle and bunny must belong to that guy over there, but they haven't seen the bald guy's daemons yet. Left and right ask him where his daemons are, and he explains that his daemons are nearby, but they are just too big to fit inside the building, and he didn't want to wreck the place. Jin tells Yuru that he can't bring Asa here, but he assures him that if he comes to the Kagamori Manor, then no harm will come to him. Yuru still seems skeptical, but Jin reminds him that he already knows they have no intention of killing him. Yuru takes a moment to survey the situation, and even if he did kill Jin right now, he'd have a hard time getting out of here, especially with that big daemon outside. So he decides to agree to Jin's demands and says he will go to the Kagamori Manor to meet Asa, but he warns him that he had better not try anything funny, and Jin assures him that he will be treated as an honored guest. Meanwhile, Hana's daemon has finally tracked Yuru down, and is keeping a close eye on him to keep track of what he's doing. Now that they are in agreement, Yuru tells Jin to hurry up and take him to Asa, but Jin tells him they still need to clean this mess up before they do anything else. Jin asks AI to help him with this, so AI begins swimming around and eating up all the debris and bullet shells that were left on the ground. Yuru is rather curious about what that thing is, so he asks Jin to explain, and he is informed that the pair are basically nature's janitors. I can eat anything, and Makoto over here can spit it up on command, so Jin has been feeding Ai useful items every now and then to use in combat should the need arise. While Jin is talking with Yuru, Left goes up to Haru and asks him how heavy that turtle is. Haru doesn't really know since he has never tried weighing it before, but he tells her that it can get even heavier than before. And hearing that is a serious blow to Left's pride, so she vows to train even harder from now on. Right also has a bit of a rivalry going on with the bunny since he doesn't like the fact that he was losing to it for a while back there, and the bunny wastes no time mocking him the second it gets the chance. This pisses right off. So he asks Yuru if he knows anything about hunting rabbits, and Yuru casually responds saying rabbit meat makes good broth, which scares the shit out of the bunny. Just then, a security guard who happened to hear all the commotion comes down to see what's wrong, and to avoid drawing suspicion. The group plays it cool and acts like they were just innocently standing there when the light bulbs all blew up all of a sudden. The guard is really confused, but he doesn't think they've done anything wrong, and he can't see the daemons either, so he doesn't see anything wrong here. Back at the Kagomori Manor, Asa was asleep when she got the message from Jin telling her that he's on his way here with Yuru, and the second Asa sees that, she freaks out and goes to wake Gabby up to tell her the good news. Gabby is surprised that Jin was able to find Yuru so fast, and now Asa is panicking trying to figure out what to wear when she meets Yuru. Along the way, Jin also calls the clan head and informs him that Yuru has agreed to come to the manor, and the head is pleased to hear that. But he's not at the manor right now, so he asks Jin if he could convince Yuru to wait until he gets back. He was originally planning to relax at a hot spring for the night, but if Yuru is really coming, then he's going to cancel his plans and head right back immediately. But before he goes, he asks his assistant to take this sick picture of him standing on top of a daemon so it looks like he's floating midair. They eventually arrive at the Kagomori clan home and drive in through the front gate, but Left and Right are confused because they had heard that the Kagomoris have tons of demons, yet they don't sense any daemons nearby at all. Jin explains that that's because they are still in the public section of the compound, and they should start sensing the other daemons once they pass the barrier. Once they pass through the barrier, just like Jin said, Left and Right can now sense tons of daemons all around them. Meanwhile, back in the house, Gabby's daemon informs her that Yuru has arrived, and as Asa is about to head out to meet him, she asks Gabby if she would like to come with, but she has no interest in meetings with the guy who put 2 holes in her body. She also still has quite a bit of trouble walking since her leg is messed up, so she has to stay back regardless. Outside, Hana's daemon has just tracked Yuru to the estate, but it can't go inside because of the barrier, so it just relays the information to the others. Dara and Hana are still desperately waiting to find out where Yuru is, but they are both extremely disappointed to find out that he's in Kagomori territory. They assumed he must have been captured when he went out on his own, so Dara gets up and gets ready to go pick him up. As he's heading for the front door, Hana asks him if he wants her to drive, but Dara says he will handle this one alone, since the Kagomoris already know who he is, and he wouldn't want to blow Hana's cover as well. Meanwhile, Yuru and the others have just arrived outside the front entrance of the Kagomori Manor, and they are amazed by how huge it is since they've never seen a castle like this before. But just then, a man named Asuma walks up to them. Jin isn't all too happy to see Asuma, so he asks him what he's doing here, and Asuma says that he simply heard that the other twin was coming here, so he wanted to come see for himself. Jin asks him how he knew about that since he only told Asa and the clan head about Yuru, and Asuma is starting to seem a bit suspicious, but he just makes up an excuse and says he overheard the news. A few moments later, Asa comes outside, and she is really happy to see Yuru again, so she asks if it would be weird for her to hug him, and Yuru shuts her down immediately because he still barely knows anything about her. He says he came because he has a few questions to ask Asa, and Asa says she's willing to answer anything, but before that, Yuru says they should probably take care of Jin's injury first. Asuma chimes in and suggests that since Jin is injured, maybe he should show Yuru around the manor instead, but Jin cuts him off and tells him that Yuru is his guest, so he has no business with Asuma. Asuma takes the hint and decides to leave Yuru alone, and as he is walking away, Jin asks to have someone stand guard by the gate and tells Yuru to stay close to him inside the manor, just in case. Once they get inside, They take Jin to the infirmary so he can get some proper treatment for his ankle, and the doctor can hardly believe that he got his ankle cut by a machete. After Jin has been patched up, he remembers the blood he's carrying and hands it back over to the doctor. Speaking of the blood, Yuru thinks it's despicable that they would cut Asa just to lay a trap for him with her blood, but Asa explains that it was actually her idea to use her blood. And with modern technology, drawing blood is easy and almost painless. Asa also mentions that the Kagamoras feed her a ton, so losing a little blood won't affect her at all. Yuru is still having a hard time wrapping his head around all of this, but then Asa asks him if now is a good time to ask for a hug again, and Yuru turns her down again. Speaking of hugs, he asks why Asa is so big when she's supposed to be the same age as him, and Asa explains that the food down here is really nutritious, so if he eats it for a while, he's bound to have a growth spurt as well, and Yuru admits that he really does like the rice they have here. But that's beside the point. He came here to ask questions. So he walks up to Asa and asks her where their mom and dad are, because he wants to see them. However, Asa tells him that their parents aren't here, and she has no idea where they are. It's a long story, so Asa asks Jin to fill Yuru in on all the details. Jin explains that a lot happened after Asa and Yuru's parents fled the village. Eventually, they settled into their new lives down here, and at one point they decided to visit Yuru's mother's hometown. Yuru recalls his mother mentioning that she used to live down the mountain to him at one point, and she said she'd take him there someday. Jin informs him that his mother's home is called Okinawa, and it's an island in the far south, so the only way to get there is by boat or plane. As far as the people from her home knew, she had gone missing in the mountains when she went hiking and never came back, so they all thought she was dead, and Yuru's mother wanted to let them know that she was okay, so she and Asa and Yuru's dad left Asa in the care of the Kagamoras and got on a plane to visit. However, when the plane landed, they were gone. Yuru asks how that's possible, but they aren't sure, because when the plane took off, they were definitely on the plane, so they must have vanished during the flight. They had a daemon-wielding guard with them for protection, but he vanished as well. Yuru thinks the guard might have been in on it, and Jin doesn't deny that possibility, but they have no way of knowing for now. Yuru yells at Asa and asks how she could ally herself with people who allowed their parents to go missing, but she still fully trusts the Kagamoras because after they left the village, they were constantly being targeted by assassins, so if the Kagamoras hadn't taken them in, they probably would have died long ago. While all this is happening, an unknown group is preparing to attack the Kagamori estate, and they think this is the perfect opportunity because not only are both twins present, but both Gabby and Jean are injured, so they won't be able to fight back. They are still a little hesitant since Yuru's daemons are quite strong, and Asa is pretty powerful in her own right, but her powers should be weaker at night, so they decide to launch their attack. All of a sudden, left and right sense something approaching, so they look out the window and see two Yoon and gang demons charging at them. While that's happening, Gabby is still sound asleep, so Teth tries to wake her up because there's danger close by. Gabby eventually gets up, and that's when she notices these two forbidden experiment-looking demons at her door, but she isn't worried because with teeth, taking care of them should be light work. As for Yuru and the others, they are currently running through the building trying to escape the demons, and Yuru is mad because he thinks Jin led him into a trap, but Jin tells him that those daemons don't belong to the Kagamori clan, so intruders must have broken through the barrier. If that's the case, then he asks if it's okay to destroy the daemons. Jin says that ideally he wants to capture their master, because the daemons are just following orders, and specifically capture them because if a daemon's master is killed before it is transferred to a new master, it will essentially become a ghost and vanish in a few decades. Yuru understands, so he promises to try not to kill the master when he finds them, but for now, he asks Jin if he has a bow and arrow in there that he can use, so Jin asks Makoto to spit something up for Yuru, but Yuru has never seen bows like this before, so he's not sure if he's going to be able to use them, but he's still going to try anyway. This was the end of episode 5. Subscribe to not miss the next part.